Today we will start with a new topic. We have completed the cardiovascular system. Yesterday was the last class. So today we will start with a very important disease. The prevalence of that disease is very huge in India, and that condition is diabetes mellitus. Diabetes mellitus. Diabetes mellitus. If we understand the epidemiology, almost 5 to 10% of the Indian population is having diabetes. 5 to 10%, approximately 8 crore people have diabetes mellitus. So first, let's understand what is the definition of diabetes mellitus. So diabetes mellitus is basically a metabolic disorder with a common term to these metabolic disorder is hyperglycemia. Hyperglycemia is the elevated plasma glucose levels. So this definition includes the value of the plasma glucose, values of the plasma glucose. So if we understand, first is the normal values. And to define the hyperglycemia, we take the fasting values, the postprandial values, and the glycosylated hemoglobins. So first is the fasting plasma glucose. Normal value. So the normal value is less than 100. Milligram per deciliter. While the postprandial PP plasma glucose it is less than 140 milligram per deciliter. And the HbA1c, glycosylated hemoglobin, it is less than equal to 5.6%. So these are the normal values. Yes, this is the first slide of today's lecture, and today's lecture we are starting with the diabetes mellitus, a very important disorder with a very high prevalence in India. Now these are the normal values: fasting plasma glucose, PP plasma glucose values, and the HbA1c. Now the definition of pre-diabetes. Pre-diabetes include the fasting glucose of 100 to 125. Fasting glucose. Normal fasting is less than 100. 110 is the WHO guideline, but rest of the guideline, majority of the guideline, consider it as less than 100, especially for Indians, especially for the Indian population. Now the PP values range from 140 to 199. Postprandial values. This is 2 hours. PP values, postprandial values is after the 2 hours. Now, this is for all the ages that we are considering these values, and the HbA1c value range from 5.7 to 6.4%. 6.4%. So, this is a pre-diabetes range. This is a pre-diabetes range. Now, for the definition of diabetes. So here comes the definition of this metabolic disorder, that is the definition of diabetes. So fasting values more than equal to 126. As I am saying, more than equal to 126 means 126 is inclusive in the definition of diabetes. In the definition of diabetes. Then the 2 hours postprandial values, it is more than equal to 200, and the HbA1c of more than equal to 6.5. 6.5. So these are the values for the diabetes range. Diabetes range. And this is according to the both International Diabetes Federation as well as the American Diabetes Association. American Diabetes Association. And the values of these guidelines are also followed by the Indians. Now, the other definition in this table is fasting value. If a patient has only fasting abnormality of 100 and 125, but the other values are okay, so this is known as impaired fasting glucose. This is known as the IFG. This is known as the IFG. So impaired fasting glucose. While if a patient has only the postprandial elevation, this is known as impaired glucose tolerance. Impaired glucose tolerance, IGT. So if a patient has a fasting glucose of 100 to 125, other values are okay, you call that as impaired fasting glucose. While if a patient has only 2 hours value of 140 to 199, you call this as impaired glucose tolerance. That is known as the IGT. This is known as the IGT short form. IGT and IFG. These are the terminology which are used for defining the pre-diabetes and defining the diabetes. This is the first page. It is 100 to 125. As I told you earlier, 110 is the cutoff according to the WHO, but that is that is 10 years old. They have not changed that value. But for Indian scenario, especially we are at very high risk of diabetes, we take it as 100 value. Why we take PP after 2 hours? Because 2 hours has the you can say physiologically the maximum elevation of the sugar values occur at the 2 hours. Therefore we take that maximum value for a particular individual. Now coming to that diabetes. For the diabetes, what exactly is the precise definition? So the definition for diabetes diagnosis. So the definition of diabetes. If anyone is positive, if any one of the criteria is positive. So the criteria which is taken are, so come to the table. This is the first page that we have just started, that is diabetes mellitus. Yes, the 2 hours PP is after the 75 gram of glucose. PP means after the 75 grams of glucose. Now come to the diabetes diagnosis. If any one of them is positive, number one is, if a patient has fasting plasma glucose more than equal to 126. And how fasting is defined? Fasting is defined as the no calorie intake for at least 8 hours. For at least 8 hours. Or number 2, 2 hours PP value. PP is after 75 gram of glucose. 2 hours postprandial plasma glucose more than equal to 200. More than equal to 200. Or the third one is a random sugars. Random plasma glucose, we can say, or the better term is glucose. If it is more than equal to 200 but with the classical symptoms of diabetes or hyperglycemia, classical symptoms. And the classical symptoms of the diabetes are 3 symptoms which are taken, that is polyuria, polydipsia and weight loss. These are the 3 classical symptoms. If patient is symptomatic, polyuria, polydipsia. Polyuria is excessive urination, polydipsia is excessive water intake due to excessive thirst, and weight loss. These are the classical symptoms. Now the fourth one is if, or number 4th, HbA1c value more than equal to 6.5 gram percent or 6.5%. Glycosylated hemoglobin. So these are the definition of the diabetes. Any one of them should be positive, and it should be positive on more than equal to 2 occasions. What about the polyphagia? Polyphagia is a symptom but not classical, not included in the definition of diabetes. Polyphagia will be present, but it is not a classical symptom, not included in the definition. Is plasma glucose and blood glucose same or different? Different. These are the different values. Blood glucose and plasma glucose are different entities. Blood glucose is the venous sample, and the plasma glucose is the extraction of the glucose from the plasma. So there is a difference. Now coming to, so this is the definition of the blood glucose values defining the diabetes. What is the time to take the random sugars? There is no time, as the name suggests, it is random sugars. What if only random plasma sugar is present and no clinical sign? That will not be included in the definition. That will not include the definition. Now, coming to the most important is the physiology of the insulin secretion or physiology of the glucose control in our body. And understand this flow chart, understand this diagram very carefully, because every etiology of diabetes can be diagnosed, can be identified from that figure or that flow chart. So come to the first is the physiology of insulin and glucose. Physiology of the insulin and the glucose. This all we know is the physiological basis of insulin release is the beta cells of the pancreas. Now let's revise the basic subjects like biochemistry, physiology and pathology. So first is, so we'll make a diagram of the physiology of the insulin. Say this is the beta cell of the pancreas. So I will make the beta cell of the pancreas. Located in the pancreas. Located in the pancreas. What if more than 75 gram glucose taken? Remember, 75 gram glucose is a standard amount of the glucose. That is the average, you can say, the glucose which correspond to major diet of the individuals. That correspond to average diet or average breakfast of the individual, 75 grams of glucose. Now coming to the physiology and biochemistry not taken, they must be taken. Therefore you are here, you must have passed your physiology and biochemistry in the first prof. Therefore you are here, so recall back. So this is the beta cells and it is the blood. So I will take the blood component here. So this is beta cells, here is the blood, and in the blood glucose is present. Glucose is present. And if glucose value is more than 70 milligram per deciliter, glucose values. Normal lab testing do the plasma glucose. They do the plasma glucose. The plasma glucose is 10 to 15% higher than the venous or capillary glucose Now come to the blood glucose here. This enters the beta cells. This enters the beta cells, and the receptors which let the entry of the glucose into the beta cells, these receptors are known as GLUT receptors. GLUT receptors. They are located in various cells, and one of the cell is the beta cell of the pancreas. Now remember which type of the GLUT receptor is present here in the beta cells of the pancreas. So it will be the GLUT4, GLUT2 or GLUT1. Which is the GLUT? This is two types of GLUT are present here. This is GLUT1 and 2. GLUT1 and 2 in the humans. GLUT1 is there along with the GLUT2. So what will happen? This will take the glucose inside the cells. glucose inside the cells. So this will be then converted into glucokinase. And why I am writing these important steps, reason is if there is a mutation of glucokinase, patient will develop diabetes. If there is a genetic defect of glucokinase, patient will develop the diabetes. So this glucokinase convert the glucose into its product glucose 6 phosphate. Glucose 6 phosphate. Yes, and this glucose 6 phosphate then will go into the mitochondria and will generate the ATP. It will go to the mitochondria, and this mitochondria will generate the ATP. So this ATP, now what this ATP will do, this ATP will inhibit the potassium channel of beta cells. This will inhibit the potassium channel of the beta cells. It is IK channels. So this is ATP sensitive potassium channel. This is a ATP sensitive potassium channel, and it is inhibited by the ATP. Now what will happen when this channel is inhibited? The resting membrane potential of beta cells increase from -70 to -50. So it will depolarize, it will reach a threshold for the depolarization, and as soon as it reaches the 50, calcium channel are activated. So there will be activation of, when this happens, there is activation of voltage dependent calcium channels L type are stimulated. Depolarization, the threshold for the depolarization will stimulate these calcium channels, and this calcium will enter the cells. Now what this calcium will do? Calcium will lead to the release of the insulin from secretory granules. So here is the nucleus. So I will make the nucleus here. This is the nucleus, and there is granules. There are granules. They contain insulin. They contain the insulin. So this calcium which enters increases the exocytosis of this insulin molecules. Exocytosis of these insulin molecules. So this is a important flow chart or important diagram of the how the insulin is released, insulin is secreted. So this is a exocytosis, and it is happening due to the entry of the calcium inside the cells. Now this secretion, this insulin secretion is also mediated by the receptor here. Look at the receptors here. These are incretin receptors, which through cyclic AMP pathway, incretin receptors through cyclic AMP pathway causes the release, causes the exocytosis of the insulin, Now, completing this diagram, understanding this diagram, in the nucleus side there are some transcription factors. So I will just write HNF. Yes, this incretin is the GLP. This is a GLP receptors, GIP receptors. Now you will try to make the links from the pharmacology also and the pathology also for the type of diabetes from this single diagram. So repeating it once again. When the blood glucose reaches a value of more than 70 is the threshold for insulin release in the blood. So the glucose, look at the arrow, the glucose will enter the pancreatic cells with the help of GLUT2 and GLUT1, and this glucose will be converted into glucose 6-phosphate with the help of a glucokinase, and this product will go to the mitochondria. Pyruvate will be there, and it will make the ATP in the mitochondria. ATP will be generated because of the glucose. This ATP will inhibit the potassium channels. These are the ATP sensitive potassium channels. And this will lead to the inhibition of potassium out of the cell. Remember, understand carefully, this will inhibit the potassium exit out of the cell. This inhibit the potassium channels. So what will happen? The resting membrane potential of beta cells from -70 will go to the -50, less negative. Now that less negative is the action potential threshold for depolarization, and there is a stimulation of these voltage gated calcium channels. Calcium will enter the cells and it leads to help in the exocytosis process of the insulin. So this will lead to the insulin release. Now before the next step, there is the incretin receptors. Now what is the fundamental of incretin? Remember, there are hormones which are released from the intestine. When we eat food, our intestine gets stimulated and they release the hormone, and this hormone is known as glucagon-like peptide. GLP-1, and this is known as incretin. So these are released from the food which we take from the intestine, from the distal intestine. These molecules are released in response to the food that we eat. They go to the beta cells and they help in the release of insulin. Now strike in your mind pharmacology. This is also here. So now coming to the next step. Next step is I have mentioned the word HNF. So this HNF is HNF. With HNF, what strike in your mind? Which type of diabetes will strike in your mind if there is a HNF mutations? So let's understand that also. So HNF is known as hepatocyte nuclear transcription factor. Yes, very good. Now it is striking in your mind that MODY. We will come to that MODY. Maturity onset diabetes of a young. Yes, very good, very good. So HNF, hepatocyte nuclear transcription factor. Now, what is the role of this HNF? It act on various pathway to help aid insulin secretion. Various portions. So one of the portion where HNF work is the at the level of mitochondria. So one of the step is this HNF helps in insulin secretion at maybe at mitochondrial pathways or the granule release of insulin. Granular release of the insulin. Granular release of the insulin. So this potassium channel is same as SUR type case channels. Very good. So you are very good students. Very good. So I am coming to that also, so that you can make the connections with the pharma also. So first understand the HNF, hepatocyte nuclear transcription factor. It has multiple role. So it help in the insulin secretion at the level of mitochondria or at the level of granule release of insulin. Sorry, granule release of insulin. These are some factors, HNF1, HNF4, like that. What will incretin receptors do? Remember, incretin receptors, they causes the stimulation of cyclic AMP pathway. They stimulate the cyclic AMP pathway, and cyclic AMP pathway causes the exocytosis. So two process help in exocytosis, calcium and cyclic AMP pathway along with the HNF. So this is yes, this is a pancreatic cell, not hepatotropic cells. So remember, certain factors are have retained their original name. Like I will give you one example. BNP. BNP is brain natriuretic peptide, but where it is released from? It is released from the heart, ventricles. Heart, but the name is brain natriuretic peptide. Similarly, this factor is also located in the liver, synthesized in the liver also, but it has a location in the pancreatic cells also. Hepatocyte nuclear transcription factor, HNF. Now coming to the further details of this diagram. Remember, this is the most important diagram. This is a very important diagram. Revise that diagram to make your concepts on the diabetes etiology, pharmacology of the diabetes, physiology of the diabetes very carefully. So let's come to the potassium channels. So come to the potassium channel. These potassium channels have two subunits, and one subunit is having the SUR also, sulfonylurea receptor. There is a receptor, sulfonylurea receptor. sulfonylurea receptor. And now you can understand the mechanism of the sulfonylureas, the secretagogues. So the sulfonylurea attach here and will inhibit the potassium exit outside, leads to the insulin release. So this is the SUR receptor on this subunit. Now come to the next process. Next is this insulin. This insulin is secreted in various portions. So first is, remember, there is a proinsulin and proinsulin. There is a proteolytic action. This is all happening inside the cells. So there is proteolytic action, and this convert into two fractions. One is C peptide and second is insulin, and they are released in equimolar concentrations. So proinsulin get fragmented, cleaved into C peptide. It cleaved into the C peptide. So what is the other subunit of potassium? The other subunit of the potassium channel is, one is SUR, and second unit is the of potassium. It is known as KIR, inward rectifier potassium channel. That is a subunit. I stand for current, K stand for the potassium, I stand for inward, R for rectifier. So IKIR. Now coming to the proinsulin is converted into C peptide and the insulin, and these are released in equimolar concentrations, and they will go to the portal circulation and then systemic circulation. So proinsulin is the raw insulin, we can say. It is a raw insulin, and it is cleaved into two portions, C peptide and insulin. Remember, insulin has a relatively short T half, but C peptide has a long T half. So what is the importance of this? Importance is the insulin, when it goes to the portal circulation, majority of that insulin is degraded in the liver. So if we want to assess the insulin reserve of the pancreas, we take the C peptide value. So as insulin degraded in liver, it is degraded in kidneys also, but also in the liver. So serum C peptide levels gives estimation of insulin synthesis. C peptide level will give the estimation of the of the insulin secretion. The site of the proteolysis is inside the beta cells. Remember, this is inside the beta cells, that proteolytic action here, and through the exocytosis, C peptide and insulin are released. C peptide and insulin are released. So now come to a conceptual aspect of this condition. Conceptual aspect of this condition. So understand the clinical scenario very carefully before going to the next step of the insulin physiology. Before the next step of insulin physiology, suppose now I will write down that question. That question usually come in your AIIMS type of exams. Question is to differentiate hypoglycemia due to increase insulin endogenous or increase insulin exogenous. So what happens to the C peptide? The C peptide they are gradually excreted through the kidneys. Long T half, so gradually excreted via the kidney. So to differentiate a hypoglycemia due to the insulinoma. Insulinoma is a endogenous insulin increase from the insulin which we are giving from outside. Remember, very important, insulin which we are giving outside is only insulin, but if it is a insulinoma, C peptide level will be increased. Yes, very good. So C peptide level will be increased in this condition. Important concept. Will be increased, while in exogenous insulin C peptide will not be increased. So this is how to differentiate from the insulinoma from exogenous insulin. C peptide level. Yes, very good. Now coming to the next one, and next process is when it goes to the systemic circulation. Now what will happen in the systemic circulation? This insulin will attach with its receptor in insulin sensitive cells. So these are the adipocytes, liver, skeletal muscles. So now understand carefully what will happen next when insulin goes to their target organs. So the target organs is the mainly fat cells, liver, and the skeletal muscles. So insulin will go and bind with its receptor. So there is insulin receptor on these cells, and there will be a post receptor signaling to the nucleus. And then there will be expression of the transporter, and that transporter will be GLUT4 transporter. And this GLUT4 transporter then take the glucose inside. So this is the action of the insulin. Receptor go to the receptor, then there is a post receptor signaling. This is a post receptor signaling, and there is expression of GLUT4 receptor, and glucose will enter these cells from the blood. GLUT4. How to know that C peptide levels are increased? Do a blood test. So in the blood test we will get to see the C peptide levels. So the insulin when it comes in a systemic circulation, it will attach with its receptors, that is the liver, adipocytes and the skeletal muscles. There is a post receptor signaling, and post receptor signaling will lead to the expression of GLUT4, and with GLUT4 glucose enter the cells, glucose will enter the cells. This is the function of the insulin. Now if I have to summarize the function of the insulin, to remember the important functions of the insulin is, this is just physiology. So normal insulin function, it is number one, within seconds intake of glucose inside the cells. How insulin causes hypokalemia? So the normal insulin function, can anyone tell me what is the second, fill in the blanks? The insulin intake of glucose and inside the cell, what is that molecule, what is that electrolyte? That electrolyte is the potassium. Within seconds. So this gives your answer, how insulin causes hypokalemia. This is the mechanism. Number two, insulin causes the lipogenesis. It helps in the lipogenesis. Number third, insulin function. Number third insulin function is, it inhibits gluconeogenesis and inhibit glycogenolysis. So it inhibits the gluconeogenesis process in the skeletal muscles, in the adipocytes in the liver, and in the liver it inhibits the glycogenolysis, as well as there is the protein intake into the skeletal muscles also. So there is protein or amino acid intake into skeletal muscles. What if hypoglycemia is due to the medicine? That the level of that medicine will be increased. Sulfonylurea level will be increased. Now, this is the normal functions of the insulin. Now, come to after this physiology. Remember, physiology is very, very important. Now we come to the causes of diabetes. But my advice is, remember that diagram, physiology diagram, very carefully, so that you are able to understand in which etiology you give which particular drug. Now, coming to the causes of the diabetes. You can also say this as the etiological classification of diabetes. Etiological classification of diabetes. So the etiological classification, it is classified into 4 categories. So the number 1 category is the autoimmune diabetes. So it is known as type 1 diabetes, and it is mostly immune mediated. We will discuss it in detail, the pathology or natural course of the disease. Come to number 2 is type 2 diabetes. Multifactorial. Multifactorial like insulin resistance, decrease insulin synthesis, increased liver glucose production. So the etiology is multifactorial. Etiology is the multifactorial. In type 2 diabetes, it is a combination of all three or any of these three. Any of these three: insulin resistance, decrease in the insulin synthesis, increased liver glucose production. Increase in the liver glucose production. Now come to the number third diabetes, and that diabetes is known as the specific cause is exactly known. So this is known as the specific type of diabetes. Specific type of diabetes in which the 3A, there are various in this list. So the 3A, glycogenolysis occur in the liver. Yes, predominantly it occur in the liver, but remember gluconeogenesis can occur in multiple organs. Now come to the specific type of diabetes. So there is a genetic defect of beta cell function. So we know exactly the name of the gene, single genetic defect, in which this group is popularly known as 3A, maturity onset diabetes of young. This is known as the MODY, MODY. This is known as the maturity onset diabetes of young. Maturity onset diabetes of young. So yes, gestational diabetes you can classify as number 3 also. There is no problem. If you classify it as type 3. Now, specific type of diabetes where we know the single genetic defect of the beta cells. So maturity onset diabetes of the young, they have a genetic defect, and important ones are MODY1, there is a HNF4 alpha mutation. HNF4 alpha mutation, and you have seen in the diagram the HNF, they work at the level of either mitochondria, or they help in the release of the insulin, the secretion of the insulin. So that will be impaired. Then MODY2, it is due to the mutation of glucokinase. That is the mutation of the glucokinase. So in that diagram, if glucokinase is less in number, if it is less in number, so the stimulus for the secretion of the insulin will be reduced if glucokinase is defective. Now the third one is MODY3. This is HNF1 alpha mutation. And this HNF1 alpha mainly act at mitochondria level. It acts at the mitochondria level. So MODY1 HNF4 alpha mutation, HNF4 alpha mutation. MODY2 is glucokinase mutation. MODY3 is HNF1 alpha mutation, and that HNF1 alpha mutation mainly act at the mitochondrial level. It acts at the mitochondrial level. Now, if I have to give you the scenario, understand this. Because nowadays questions on MODY are coming. So look at this diagram. Once again look at this diagram. The HNF1 alpha so understand carefully, look at this diagram. So if HNF1 alpha is defective, how will you control the insulin secretion? How will you control the sugar levels of this patient? So if the HNF alpha is working here and there is a mutation, it is not working at the level of the mitochondria, you will give a drug which will act at the later steps of the pathway, and that drug will help in insulin release. So which will be the drug which will be helpful? The drug which will be helpful here will be the sulfonylureas. So they will act on the potassium channel, that is one step further after the mitochondria, and patient will have a good sugar control. This is the reason why sulfonylurea will work here. In the MODY3 they will work. Yes, very good. Sulfonylurea will work here because they will act on the later pathway. Now coming to the other specific type of diabetes. So though there are other MODYs, but they will be very rare, and nobody will going to ask those questions to you. Now there can be a number B, specific cause of the diabetes. There can be genetic mutation of the KIR channel. KIR channel activating mutations. Activating mutations. So the activating mutations of IKR channel, the HNF4 alpha, it work on two pathways. One is insulin secretion, exocytosis, and second is the mitochondrial level. So it work on both. How sulfonylurea act as a single? Yes, that will be only a single subunit. It will work. So genetic mutations, that will be the third B. Now come to the C cause, and this is one of the frequently asked question. The number C in type 3 specific cause of diabetes, that is a disease of exocrine pancreas. What is activating mutations? Activating mutation is gain of function. And when there is a gain of function, depolarization will be impaired. That is the meaning of a activating mutation, gain of function. Potassium efflux will be more, and there will be a decreased depolarization of this genetic mutation. So this is known as the neonatal diabetes. This is manifested before 6 months of age. So this is known as neonatal diabetes. Before 6 months. Now, coming to the disease of the exocrine pancreas. So the disease of the exocrine pancreas, they damages the beta cells also. When there is a extensive damage of exocrine pancreas, so beta cells will also be involved. So the conditions in this are pancreatitis, condition in this is the CA pancreas, then condition in this is surgical removal of the pancreas, that is pancreatectomy. So they are the disease of the exocrine pancreas where the beta cells are also lost. Beta cells are also lost. In this group is the characteristic hemochromatosis. And hemochromatosis induced pancreatic damage leading to the diabetes. It also affect the skin. Iron affect the skin. This will produce a bronze pigmentation of the skin, hemochromatosis. So this diabetes is known as bronze diabetes. Reason, because of skin is pigmented. Skin is pigmented. So this is known as the bronze diabetes. And yes, cystic fibrosis will be there. Cystic fibrosis, it affects the exocrine pancreas. The most common MODY, remember different books says different. According to Robbins, MODY2 is most common, glucokinase. But according to medicine books, MODY3 is most common, that is an HNF1 alpha mutation. So it depends on the subject. If it is a pathology question, answer is MODY2. If it is a medicine question, it is MODY3, which is most common. Now coming to the other cause of the exocrine pancreas, and that is known as tropical diabetes. This is known as fibrocalculus pancreatopathy, also known as tropical diabetes. Important condition. Why? Because it is seen in India. India is mentioned whenever this terminology is used. So this type of diabetes, that is a fibrocalculus pancreatopathy or a tropical calcific pancreatitis. It is seen in especially South Indian population, South Indian population, and the exact mechanism or damage is exactly not known, but there are some hypotheses which says that malnutrition, deficiency of vitamin C and E, that is antioxidants, leads to calcific pancreatic damage. This leads to a calcific pancreatic damage. So this is known as a fibrocalculus pancreatopathy, tropical calcific pancreatitis, and this is the diabetes which is also known as, but the term is used only in India, not otherwise. This diabetes will have features of intermediate features of 1 and 2. So this diabetes has intermediate between type 1 and 2. Intermediate. How intermediate? Because there is a insulin deficiency without autoimmunity. So therefore this type of diabetes is also known as 1.5 diabetes. 1.5 diabetes. So this is seen in malnourished individuals. There is a calcification of the pancreas which leads to insulin deficiency, but there is no autoimmunity. So this is between 1 and 2. Now coming to the next cause of the secondary cause of the diabetes, important ones is D. So the C option was the diseases of the exocrine pancreas. Pancreatitis, CA pancreas, surgical removal, hemochromatosis, cystic fibrosis, and this tropical calcific pancreatitis. Now come to the next one, and next one is there will be genetic defects of insulin action. There is a genetic defect of the insulin action. So these genetic defect of the insulin action is can be a post receptor signal defect. So if you can see in the above diagram, insulin was binding with its receptor, and after that there is a signal to the nucleus. So that post receptor signal defect is there, and this is known as a type A insulin resistance. This is known as the type A insulin resistance. There is a genetic defect, and that is a single gene defect which we know, post receptor signal defects, type A insulin resistance. Then there can be a genetic defect of insulin action, and these syndromes are very characteristic syndromes known as. First syndrome is leprechanism. So there is a defect in the insulin action. So this syndrome, genetic syndrome, is a single gene defect, and in this patient will have alpha-phasis. There is a hirsutism. Elfin phases and hirsutism, leprechanism, this is a genetic defect of the insulin action. There is a defect of the insulin action. Why the D is not considered in the type 2? As I told you, type 2 is a polygenic disorders. If you are able to identify a single gene, pinpoint gene, if you know a single agent, that will come in a specific cause of diabetes. That will come in a specific cause of diabetes. Now, after the D, then comes the E option, and that is other endocrine disorders. Other endocrine disorders. So other Elfin phases, I will show you tomorrow the diagram of that Elfin phases. If you can understand the Hindi, Pishach like phase is the Elfin phase. Now coming to the other endocrine disorders, and this is the question also, questions and their mechanism of action. So the other endocrine disorders are hormone, growth hormone, it is insulin antagonist. So if there is a increased growth hormone, that is a insulin antagonist, that is acromegaly. Yes, this is a growth hormone effect. It inhibits the insulin action. Next one is very simple, Cushing syndrome. Glucocorticoids inhibits insulin action. Indeed, they are one of the causes, the exogenous glucocorticoid intake, which leads to the sugar levels. Then, of course, glucagon level high, as it is insulin antagonist. Now, correct me if there is some mismatch with your physiology. Glucagon, it stimulate gluconeogenesis. It stimulate glycogenolysis. So glucagon is insulin antagonist. It is an insulin antagonist, glucagon. So tumor will cause hyperglycemia. Now the other one is very simple. That is hyperthyroidism. So hyperthyroidism can also cause diabetes. The reason for hyperthyroidism causing the diabetes is increased thyroid hormone. Stimulate glucose absorption from GIT. Increased thyroid hormone stimulate the glucose absorption from the GIT, leads to hyperglycemia. Then next one, that is if there is a increased aldosterone, hyperaldosteronism. hyperaldosteronemia. So this will lead to the hyperglycemia. This will lead to the hyperglycemia. Let me check your concept. Let me check your concept. So my the question number one is, yes, I will come to the catecholamines also. I will come to the catecholamines also. So my question to you is, if aldosterone levels are increased, what will happen to serum potassium? My question is yes, this can be a Cons syndrome, hyperaldosteronism. What is the action on serum potassium? Will it increase the serum potassium or will it decrease the serum potassium? So effect of aldosterone on the potassium levels. Aldosterone. Anyone? Correct answer. It will decrease. Yes. Serum potassium is reduced. And if serum potassium is reduced, what will happen to the potassium channel of beta cells? Will remain Yes, it causes a secretion of the potassium out of the cells, out of the kidney. So serum potassium is reduced. If serum potassium is reduced, potassium channels of beta blocker will remain closed or open. They will remain open. Yes. And if they will remain open, the depolarization process will be impaired. And that is how you understand from that diagram. That diagram is the most important diagram. Any cause you can understand with that diagram. So for streaming purposes, here we will take a short break. 2 minutes of break we will take here for streaming purpose. Hello. Coming back to the classification of the diabetes and their reasons. So my advice is, do not learn these things, the list of these causes. Try to apply what exactly is the mechanism, what exactly is the reason for these causes, etiologies, how it is different from the physiology, normal physiology. Now coming to the next endocrine cause, and the next endocrine cause is the cause where due to excessive sympathetic activity there is a diabetes. Excessive sympathetic activity. Now how this excessive sympathetic activity leads to the diabetes? Of course, the cause is pheochromocytoma. And also, some of you must have seen the patient and you ask the history. Patient says that my diabetes is high because of stress, because of tension. And what does stress and tension do? These causes the increase in sympathetic activity, especially the beta receptors. So beta receptors, they have two actions. So beta receptors, when they are stimulated, some are located in the pancreas also, beta 2 receptors especially, and they have a mild increase in insulin but a severe increase in glucagon levels. So the net result will favor the hyperglycemia. The net result will favor the hyperglycemia. There is a increased sympathetic activity. Increased sympathetic activity. And with this, you can also understand that beta agonist drugs, they also cause hyperglycemia. They will also cause hyperglycemia. So, catecholamine release because of the pheochromocytoma, sympathetic activity stimulated, beta 2 receptors will get activated. They will cause a mild increase in insulin, but a severe increase in glucagon, leading to the net effect is hyperglycemia. Now, coming to the in specific causes is the drugs. So, E was the hormones. Now the F, very importantly, pharma cautions also drugs which can affect the glucose control. Now it is a test for you. Almost all the drug mechanism I will give you. You give me the name of that drug. So the first mechanism is drug. It causes cytolysis of beta cells of pancreas. It has a unique toxicity. It pick the beta cells of the pancreas and cause the destruction. So this which is this drug? Hint: this drug can be used for pneumocystis pneumonia. This drug can be used for Kala Azar, and this drug, because of the cytolysis of the pancreatic cells, it initially causes hypoglycemia followed by hyperglycemia. A very unique drug, amphotericin B. No, this is not amphotericin B. Drug used for pneumocystis in HIV. Also, drug can be used in the Kala Azar. Kala Azar. What is that drug? Anyone? I have not got the correct answer. Yes, someone said it is pentamidine. It is pentamidine. Now, the next drug is also try to correlate clinically also. This is antihypertensive. Should be avoided in diabetes, or the dose of the diabetes medicine should be increased. Antihypertensive drug by causing decrease serum potassium. By causing a decreased serum potassium. And how decrease serum potassium? That we have done above. So which drug is this? Which is an antihypertensive, should be avoided in the diabetes, and if it is to be given, then increase the dose of the diabetic medications. Yes, amlodipine, beta blocker. No, answer is it is thiazides. It is thiazides. So cautious use of the thiazides in a patient with diabetes. Now the next one is very simple. It is a potassium channel opener. Yes, potassium channel opener, that will decrease the that will decrease the depolarization. Digoxin, no, it is diazoxide. It is diazoxide. Now come to next one. Next one is this we have discussed, beta agonist. Beta agonist. And the agent, now the important one, with their unique characteristic effects. This agent can cause the production of islet cell antibody produced. It is alpha interferons. MCQ. Alpha interferon can lead to autoimmune phenomena, and autoimmune phenomena can lead to the islet cell antibody production against the islet cells. So there will be diabetes. So these are the important drugs. Of course other drugs like steroids, which we have done above, will be no doubt included in this list. Glucocorticoids, included in this will be thyroxine overdose, Why thiazide? Thiazide causes the low potassium. Why about beta agonist? Beta agonists are there. This is beta agonist. Yes, this is included in the list. Now coming to the next one, and next is the number 4, and number 4 is, though some guidelines take it as number 3 and some guidelines take it as number 4. So number 4 is gestational diabetes mellitus. Gestational diabetes mellitus means diabetes diagnosed during second or third trimester of pregnancy. Gestational diabetes mellitus. So gestational diabetes mellitus is the diabetes which is diagnosed during the second or third trimester of pregnancy. So this is because of the pregnancy hormones, which leads to the impaired glucose tolerance, leading to the high sugars. Now coming to the different diagnostic criteria for the gestational diabetes. So now they focus on the one step diagnosis of GDM. One step diagnosis of the GDM. Most of the guidelines now follow this one step, and that one step is, we will do oral glucose tolerance test. We'll do a oral glucose tolerance test with 75 grams of glucose. That is a one step diagnosis of the gestational, 75 gram. is a diagnosis for gestational diabetes. Anyone will be a gestational diabetes. Now, that is the fasting more than 92 or 1 hour post more than 180 and 2 hours post more than 153. So any one of these values, there can be a two-step, but a two-step is calling the patient on two occasions. So the preferred nowadays is a one-step diagnosis of the gestational diabetes mellitus. So this is the etiological classification of the diabetes. Now there will be some terms which will be used when you are doing the MCQs or when you are presenting the case if you are in final year. So what are those terms? Let's understand those terms and how to differentiate between those terms. So other terms or miscellaneous terms used in diabetes. Used in diabetes. So number one term is that and this you must have seen in some patient that during the surgery or any fever their glucose goes up, and when that fever episode is down their glucose come back to the normal values. So that is known as latent diabetes. So the meaning of the latent diabetes is normal glucose tolerance test, but plasma glucose increases during some sort of stress. For example, that stress can be a fever or surgery or myocardial infarction. So this is known as the latent diabetes. So the values of gestational, these are the values. (92, 180, 153). These are the values. Any one of these values is a gestational diabetes mellitus. Now, the latent diabetes is a normal glucose tolerance, but plasma glucose increase during the stress. That is known as the latent diabetes. Then the next term which is used is potential diabetes. Yes, even on a single occasion. Yes, that could be because of the catecholamines, also because of the stress. So our potential diabetes is normal glucose tolerance, but increased risk due to genetic reasons. That is the meaning of a potential diabetes. The patient does not have diabetes as present, but because of the genes, there is a high risk. Now, what is that risk? What is that risk? One question have come in your All India exams. So remember, if sibling is diabetic, there is 70% risk. While if both parents are diabetes, the risk is 40% risk. 40% risk. So the question was related कि a patient has maximum risk when? Answer, genetic risk. So maximum risk is when brother or sister has diabetes. So a patient has a 70% risk. While if both the parents are diabetic, the risk is 40%. So those patients are known as potential diabetes. Potential diabetes. Now the third terminology which is used is latent autoimmune diabetes in adults. LADA. Latent autoimmune diabetes in adults. Latent autoimmune diabetes in adults. If one parent is diabetic, then the risk will be approximately 20 to 30%. That will be the risk, 20 to 30% of the risk. When both the parents are diabetic, 40% will be the risk. So this is for the type 2 diabetes. This is for type 2 diabetes. Remember, in type 1, which we will be discussing tomorrow, type 1 and type 2, we will be discussing the pathogenesis in details tomorrow. Now come to the latent autoimmune diabetes in adults. So what is the meaning of this diabetes? The meaning of this diabetes is the age of the patient is usually 30 to 50 years of age. So it present later on. There are antibodies present. So this combination that the patient develops the diabetes 30 to 50 years of age, antibodies are present. You can say this is a slow onset of a type 1 diabetes. A slow onset. It occurs at the age of 30 to 50 years of age, but this is a mild form of diabetes. This is a mild form, slow progressive. So it is a mild and slow progression. But patient will need insulin within 5 years. Within 5 years of diagnosis. So this is a sort of the type 1 diabetes which occur between 30 to 50 years of age. Autoantibodies will be present, but it shows a mild and slow progression. It is not dramatic like a type 1 diabetes where ketone bodies are present. So this will need insulin within 5 years of diagnosis. Now coming to the difference between a certain form of diabetes, one which we have done is the MODY. So sometime there will be a clinical scenario. Where we have to differentiate between MODY or type 1 diabetes. So these will be the clinical scenario. So For example, so come to the clinical scenario. If diabetes diagnosed before 30 years of age, so clinical scenario given to you, that patient is coming to you, the age is less than 30 years of age. So how to proceed in this patient? Reason being, below 30 years of age, there can be three diagnoses. It can be a type 1 diabetes, it can be a MODY, or it can be type 2 diabetes as well. So these are the three things that you have to differentiate, because the treatment for each disorder is different. In type 1, insulin will be given. In MODY, usually sulfonylureas will work, and in type 2, lifestyle modifications along with plus minus drugs will work. So this is the clinical scenario given to you. The diabetes is diagnosed in less than 30 years of age. So for that, what you have to do, you have to go to the next step, and that step is you do auto antibody test. Auto antibody test, and these antibodies are islet cell antibodies, as well as you assess for plus serum ketones. So any patient coming to you less than 30 years of age, this is the protocol. You do a blood sample, you do the auto antibody test, islet cell antibody can be done in the blood, and serum ketones. So there will be two results. Results will be antibody present and or ketones present. Answer: it is a type 1 diabetes you are dealing with. Type 1 diabetes you are dealing with. While if the antibody tests are negative, and ketones are negative, then next step is family history. %100% positive. Weight of the patient normal. Other way around, family history plus minus, and patient is obese. So remember, 100% family history positive means it is autosomal dominant disorder. It is autosomal dominant. Weight is normal. Patient is not obese. Then you clear cut make a diagnosis of MODY. While antibody is absent, ketones absent, family history is plus minus. Family history is plus minus, but definitely there is obesity. There is obesity. So then you make a diagnosis of type 2 diabetes. Remember, even in an age of less than 30 years, diabetes can be type 2 because of main risk factor obesity. Main risk factor is obesity. So with this, we finish with the class, and we finish with the etiological classification of diabetes. So if I will summarize today's class, what we have done in today's class is the values of plasma glucose levels. Then we have done the definition of the diabetes, and third we have done the etiological classification and what is the reason for the diabetes in those conditions with the help of a physiology diagram. So my advice to you now is you read the physiology once again. Try to understand these concepts of diabetes. Do not try to just mug up these things. Try to understand these things, and then also do a little bit of pharmacology. So what will be our topic for tomorrow? Our topic for tomorrow will be the pathogenesis of type 1 and type 2 diabetes, and then the management of diabetes. And day after tomorrow we will do the complications of diabetes. So this will be our sequence of the diabetes. Which antibody we are checking? Tomorrow we will do in detail also. GAD antibody is checked, as well as the insulin antibodies are checked. So that we will do in type 1 diabetes pathogenesis tomorrow.